Alright, so one afternoon, I went downstairs and our kitchen table was smashed all over the floor. My mom's corpse just like bloody on the other side. And I went with my dad and I'm like, Dad, the fuck did you do to our table? And he's like, it was an accident! She was a bitch! And I'm like, Dad, just calm down. And he's like, fine. So we buried my mom in the backyard again. And so he's like, alright, we'll go to Ikea. So we're driving to Ikea, so normal. And he's like, not drinking. Then we get to Ikea. That's when I start like not trusting him because he starts to put me in like the children's area to wait. And I'm like, no. So I follow him without him knowing. And Ikea is a really fucking confusing place because it like tells you to go through the entire store, but Dad didn't like that idea. So he just found like a table and he just sat on it and he got completely drunk in like 30 seconds. He took like a 100-gallon tank of 9,999.999% vodka, his new vintage, which he just made like the night before. But he was completely drunk and he was running around Ikea smashing through walls, like stealing like children and like shitting in toilets and stuff. And eventually he's in like the kitchen area and he sees this woman and she's like pretending to like use a stove to see if it's good for her. But it's like, that's where you belong! And he opens the stove and just throws her in and pisses on the stove and lights his piss on fire. And he just closes the stove and like locks it. And she's just screaming and she's like being cooked alive. And after about 30 seconds, he just pulls out this like charred corpse. And this man comes over and she's like, have you seen my... And he sees my dad holding the corpse, like the burnt corpse, and he just starts bawling his eyes out. But I just goes up to him, like, he just picks him up, he's just like, be a fucking man! And he pulls out Skinner and just stabs him in the chest and rips, like, it open, just rips out his heart and, like, all of his internal organs and just eats them. And he's like, oh, he's screaming, and he has, like, this man's intestines, and he ties the head of the charred woman to his intestine. To his intestines, but acts for like a mace, like a flail, and just running around Ikea waving this woman's head around, smashing it into people. And eventually like the security guard shows up, and if you've ever seen the security guards at Ikea, they're fucking retarded. So the man walks up to my dad and he pulls out his nightstick, and he's like, sir, you have to relax. And then my dad's like, you relax! So he rips the nightstick out of the guy's hand, but it was tied to his wrist, so he just rips his arm off, and he's like, the fuck is this? He throws the man's arm and then pulls out Skinner. If you don't know what Skinner is, it's like a 10-inch Bowie knife, but it's like so sharp it can even cut Dad's skin. And he just cuts the guy in half, and like he's still alive because like it's so sharp. It like cuts everything so clean that he like blood still flows. And so he's just like on the ground like like coughing up blood. And it's like so he stomps on his throat, and his whole like internal organs just pop out of his mouth. It's like, you're making us! So he gets like one of the mops from the mop section, just mops up the mess, and like so he has this like bucket of blood, and so he's carrying the bucket of blood around with like the table he wants in the other hand, and so he gets like the checkout, you know, they always have like the little like diner place where you get like hot dogs, ice cream. And I goes up with like this bucket of blood and just puts it on the counter. He's like, make me ice cream out of it! And the lady's like, sir, just no! He shoots her in the head and adds her blood to the bucket. So he goes back and like makes like blood ice cream with like this people's blood, and he's like eating. He's like, it's good! And he's just eating. And he's eating it. I don't know. He doesn't know I'm following him yet. And I go up and I order like one of the 99-cent hot dogs, and I order it and I'm just eating it. And then he hears me eating it because he knows what I sound like when I'm eating. So he just stops. He like just turns like 180 degrees just without moving his legs. Just turns around like just like that. And he just like stares at me. And I'm like eating the hot dog, and then he like slowly walks up to me. I'm just like holding it, and he just walks up to me really quietly. He takes the hot dog out of my hand, just eats it, and he looks at me. He's like, for 2 days, he's just like. He just takes my ear and he's like, who the fuck do you think you are? And smashes my head through the concrete wall beside me. And I'm like screaming in pain because it's a concrete wall, and like my head just went right fucking through it. And I was bleeding, there were like shards of concrete in like my neck and in my chest and stuff. And I'm laying on the ground like just like bleeding out like crazy. And like my dad just picks me up. He's like, pussy! And he punches the concrete like shards through my body. He's like, you better! And I'm just like pretty much like dead at this point. And he just throws me in the truck, and he puts the table in the back of the truck. And so we're driving home. And we're driving home, and once we get home, I finally come to, and I'm like sitting on the couch, like not chained to anything, and my dad's assembling the table, and I go to get up, and I can't, because like there's no bones in my legs. And I see my dad, and he said that, like they were missing some screws, so he used my bone to make screws. And I was like, the fuck did you do that for? And I got so mad. Like last time I got this mad was when Granddad tried to kill me, and when I realized I had power of dad. So when I got up, like my bones just like re-healed, and I grew to like 6 feet tall, but I wasn't muscular, because I don't like being that. But like my skin turned black, not like black people black, but like no light whatsoever could penetrate it. And so I like sit and my dad's just like looking at me like, holy holy fuck, and he pulls out Sun and starts shooting me with him, and the bullets are just like bouncing off of me. I'm like, the fuck is going on? Because in my head I don't know like what just happened. So I just walk up to Dad, I rip Sun out of his hands, I just fire it at him, and it tears his entire body to shreds. And I'm just like, put it down, I'm like, the fuck? And I couldn't, and I started hearing like Dad's voice in my head saying, kill yourself, kill yourself. I was like, no! And then like all I could see was like Sun, like, I could see was Sun like floating up in the air and fire at me. And all I remember then is like seeing a bullet rip through my brain and then blacking out. When I woke up, I was laying on, I was lying in one of the beds at Ikea, naked, next to Dad, who was just like putting his erection away. I was like, the fuck? And Dad's like, now it's Mom's turn! And he just disappeared. And when I got home, my dad had just raped Mom. So I was like, wait a second. If it was her turn. No! And I blacked out. When I woke up, I was just lying in my bed, but like my butthole was like that big. And that's when my dad decided he needed a new table, because he beat my mom to death with the other one.